I made a coffee so we can talk today because I want to talk about a book that has to do with apocalypse in a dystopian world. Since what got me thinking about this book was the news that there's an asteroid coming. I don't think he's coming in Earth's direction, but I think he's near Earth and NASA is monitoring it. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's gonna be it. I've been through my phase of dystopian novels. That was a few years ago. And I like to think that I will be a survivor, that I will be one of those people that go through the harsh parts and survive, that learn how to live without the benefits of modern life. But I faced floods here in my state at the beginning of the year in May. I stayed without water, without electricity for more than 15 days in a row, and internet for I think almost a month. And that experience made me rethink how courageous and brave I would be in a scenario like that. So when I saw this announcement, I decided to read a book, and I'm talking about the Blue Book of Nebo. And I would 100% recommend this book to my Brazilian audience, but this was not released in Brazil, and it's such a particular book, such a specific topic and way of portraying this event of having the world change as we know, that I thought it would be best to talk with you guys, because if you're watching this video, you probably know English or is learning, so you can actually read this book. It's a very short book. It's 120, 150 pages, depending on the edition that you choose to read. Was released for the first time in 2018 and then started gaining different editions through the years, and I think it's becoming more famous through time than actually when it was released. The author is Manon Steffan Ros, and there's a lovely video of her reading a part of the book. I will try to link down below so you guys can watch her reading her book. And I searched a little bit about her on Goodreads, and I saw that she actually have a lot of books published, and they all sound weird in a good way, in a way that I will enjoy the reading. So I'm excited to try something else from her. But let's talk about what this book's about. We're gonna meet here two characters, Dylan and Rowena. And when the story actually starts, they've been isolated and alone, living in the top of a hill in Wales, near of the village city of Nebo, for 7 to 8 years after what they call the end. And believe me when I tell you that the explanations we're gonna have about this the end, it's going to be very little through the story. What we know is that the electricity was turned off, and during all those years it never came back. And a few days previous to this moment, Rowena had like a bad feeling about a few conversations that she was hearing about a third world war, about a nuclear war. So she decided to go to the supermarket and buy all the things that she thinks she would need in case of something like that happening. And so when the electricity runs out, she is kind of prepared, even that there's no preparation for this type of thing. There's no preparation for you to see the world as you know just disappear. And of course people will panic, people will start invading other people's houses, people will start to flee. And that happens in this little place that she lives with her son. And she decides to recluse herself even more. So she goes to live very isolated, and she doesn't believe into stealing from people. So when she finally decides to enter other people's houses to see if she can find anything, she puts like a rule that she will only take what's absolutely necessary, what would make her survive. She's not gonna just steal things from people. And she has this kid, Dylan, 6 years old when this happened. But we know that she now, in the present, a few years later, also has a daughter. She's 1 to 2 years old. Her name is Mona, and that by itself is like a little thing in your mind as you read, because you know they're isolated, the both of them, they're isolated, they don't have contact with other people. But if she had a child, that means that in this interval of a few years, 7, 8 years, because now Dylan is 14 years old, she got in contact with someone for this to happen. we will lost focus on what happened, what is this the end, what actually happened here in the world, what's happening around the world, that it's not between those two people, because we readers get intrigued by what's happening in the life of these two people. And the way that we learn about this story is through entries into a notebook. So one day, Rowena will find this blue notebook in someone's house, will gift Dylan with it, and ask him to write his thoughts. Because she tried to teach him, keep up with his education, but there's a moment that she reaches her limit of knowledge and she realizes that maybe the world will not go back to what they knew before, and maybe she's just wasting her time and she doesn't have anything else to teach him. She makes a pact with him that he will write every day for at least an hour, and she gifts him this notebook and asks him to write about his feelings and about what's happening. And the first thing that he thinks about is that what he will write there will be history, because they are living history. This moment, this event, this the end, as they call, is a mark in history. So they make a pact that both of them will write in this notebook and they will not read each other's entries. And there's a difference between the approach that each of them decides to give to their entries. Dylan will talk about what happened after the event, how they build this life afterwards, and Rowena will be more reflective about the past, about her life, about the decisions she made, and even that sometimes they are not talking about the same thing or the same event in the same moment. They are talking about similar aspects. So even they are not talking about the same event or the same moment, the entries kind of complement each other in a very pleasing way for us to read. And I thought that was very clever of the author to do it. Through these entries, we learn about the things that they both like and how they have different interests, even that they live together and they only have each other. Dylan is very interested in religion and to learn about that. And when he sees the book, he even thinks about the Bible, and he's the one who names the notebook as the Blue Book of Nebo, because he thinks that in history, in this feeling that he have, that he will be writing history with his entries, that he needs to name the book as the books were named before, like the red book of something, the black book of something. So he names the Blue Book of Nebo because Nebo is this place nearby. And the only things we read are the things in the book. So the passages will end sometimes abruptly. The next passage will not be about the same subject that the one we are reading previously. And sometimes you're gonna want to know more about something that will never be mentioned again. But as I told you guys, I think the magical thing about this book is that even that they live a very simple life, that they have to build everything. And Dylan becomes like a very gifted boy, building and finding solutions to simple things that we don't have to think anymore because we live in a modern world. But he learns a lot and he builds a lot of incredible things. Trying to understand these characters and trying to figure it out how they survived and what happened in their lives and how Mona is now part of their lives. This kind of distracts us from trying to figure it out what happened into this world. And that's a nice feeling because it's not about the problem. It's about how you're going through the problem. It's not about this big government that you need to defeat. It's not about this big problem that you need to solve. It's not about this big group of people that are being oppressed. You literally don't know what happened because everything that we know is what the characters know. They don't know a single thing. Kind of defeats the need of us learning what actually happened because that's not the important part. The important part is knowing these characters and learn what they think about life going through this event and surviving such harsh conditions. And Rowena, as she writes about her past, she talks about her family, the legacy of a language that she didn't keep learning and maybe will be forgotten. So she decided to use the books that they find to learn things that she would never learn if this didn't happen. And the books here play like a big part in the story because this is the only thing that she decided to took from other people's houses that it was not a necessity, but it became a necessity for them because it's how they learn things. It's how she can reconnect with her history. It's how Dylan will connect with religion, and it's how they will find a way of seeing the world, even that they don't have contact with the world anymore, in a different light. And they find joy and hope too in those books. So that's a nice thing. The end is very abrupt and gives us something to think about. And you as a reader had to deal with that. And as I told you at the beginning of the video, I started reading this book because I read this news about an asteroid coming to Earth's direction. And I don't think about apocalypse very often, just to clarify. I don't know how I would react. And when we went through COVID, I thought, I don't think the world will become the same again. And it did. We came out the other way around with our marks, of course, but we can say that we lived the same life that we lived before. Society didn't suffer many changes. And I don't think we need to have like this big change every time that something happens in history. But I think we don't think enough about the consequences, the problems, changes that we suffer as people. Sometimes in our lives, but sometimes just in our mental health, when those types of things happen. The modern world that we live also gives us a lot of distractions, so we don't have to think about it. And I think that was what scared Rowena so much. I think for a very short book as this is, it leaves us with a lot of questions and a lot of things to think. And I would just like to share my thoughts with you in this video and invite you guys to read it if you think it's interesting. It's just an episode in the middle of things happening. You don't have the cause, you don't have the solution, you don't have answers. You're just following through the life of two people. And if I were you, I would read, because during this reading and thinking about Mona, how Mona became a part of this family, it was wild how my mind was thinking about a bunch of options, the good and the bad, and in a good way that even that we don't know all, we don't need to know all. I guess that's it. So I just like to give you guys this recommendation. It's a very short book. I think it was very nice written. If you like strange books like I do, maybe you will have a great time with it. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can leave me in the comments down below other recommendations of strange short books if you feel like. And if you already read the Blue Book of Nebo, leave me your opinion down below. Okay? If you're not subscribed here yet, I invite you to do it. And we see each other in the next video. Bye.